For what purpose does the gentleman seek recognition? Mr. Barr,
Move to strike the last word.
now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. And let me first just say, Madam Chairwoman, it was great to welcome you to the Commonwealth of Kentucky over the weekend and join me and my fellow Kentuckians for the Kentucky Derby. I hope you had a great time.
Thank you. I had a wonderful time.
Good. Thank you. And let me thank also my colleagues, Congressman Scott, Congressman Zeldin, and Congressman Levin for their leadership on this important issue. As a member of both this committee and the Veterans Affairs Committee, this is an important correction. It's a technical correction, but an important correction that will benefit our veterans. This is a simple correction to fix an unintended consequence of Section 309 of S-2155, the financial regulatory relief legislation that we passed in the last Congress. And I am sure that this bill will receive the same bipartisan support that it did this morning in the VA committee markup, where Congressman Levin and I worked to advance this bill. Like my colleagues mentioned, this was an unintended consequence. It's just a drafting error of one section of the bill that was included to protect our service members and veterans who are targets of loan churning. This important provision instituted new requirements that ensured that refinancings were always going to be in the benefit of the veteran, not just a source of fee revenue for the lender. These requirements provided that the veteran must be able to recoup their fees paid for the refinancing within 36 months, and that the veteran receive a net tangible benefit from the refinancing. Refinancing should never hurt the veteran, they should help the veteran. And the third requirement intended to address the rate at which these loans were being refinanced. It was a seasoning requirement of 201 days from the first payment made by the veteran that must be met before refinancing was an option. But because of a mismatch in the timing of the passage of the legislation and the implementation of the new rules, there are now currently about 2,500 orphaned loans that are ineligible for Ginnie Mae pooling and securitization. These loans were closed but not yet securitized when S-2155 passed. Therefore, these loans, which were eligible at the time they closed and backed by the VA, are now ineligible for Ginnie Mae securitization. Without this technical correction, these loans will create liquidity strains for some of the lenders who make these VA loans, which could ultimately impact the rates our veterans pay and hinder the ability of these lenders or their willingness to originate similar loans in the future. It's critical to point out that this legislation only addresses the pooling eligibility of these 2,500 orphan loans, and it does nothing to weaken the anti-churning provisions of S-2155. I look forward to moving this legislation forward to provide certainty to veterans who, through no fault of their own, have been left in limbo while protecting the VA mortgage market as a whole from a liquidity crisis. Our veterans have earned the right to access the VA home loan program through their service to our country, and it's incumbent upon the House to ensure that this technical error does not impede their access or increase borrowing costs. Again, let me just compliment and applaud the gentleman from Georgia, my friend Mr. Scott, for his leadership on this issue, and also Mr. Zeldin from New York for his leadership on this issue. Thank you, Chairwoman Waters, for bringing the bill before the committee today. I encourage all of my colleagues to vote in favor of this bill, and I yield back.